First Quantum Minerals was on top of the world. They had just acquired the Cobre mine in Panama, which produced over $2 billion worth of metals in 2021.
Cobre Panama, la primera mina de clase mundial en el país.
For Philip Pascal, the CEO of First Quantum, the Cobre was the company's biggest investment yet. First Quantum had several projects before this, including the Lanchi, Frontier, and Kansanshi mines in South Africa. These mines processed millions of tons of copper oxide in the 2000s and made First Quantum a formidable competitor in the copper industry. However, in Philip's eyes, the Cobre mine was more valuable than all of these combined, and he was ready to bet big. The site of the present-day Cobre mine was mined long ago by indigenous populations. Artifacts containing gold were discovered in the region throughout the 1900s. Fernández de Oviedo, a Spanish historian, traveled to present-day Panama during Spain's conquest of the West Indies in the 14th century. He wrote extensively about his experiences in his book, Sumario de la Natura Historia de las Indias. Because although gold is found everywhere, it is not everywhere that it can be pursued, as there is little in one place and much more in another, and the mine or vein that must be pursued must be in a place where, considering the cost of the people and other necessary things in searching, the cost can be recouped, and besides that, some profit can be made, because finding gold in most places, little or much, is beyond doubt. Regarding copper, I say that in many parts of these islands and the mainland of these Indies, it has been found, and continues to be found, in large quantities and very rich. However, they do not yet care about it, nor do they extract it, although in other parts the utility and profit that could be obtained from copper would be very great treasure. Between 1966 and 1969, a United Nations Development Program team discovered there was indeed copper everywhere. Many other companies also followed and explored the area further. The area was eventually divided into 4 zones. Much of the area had copper, but Zone 3 was given to Petaquilla Minerals to extract its gold. The Petaquilla mine was established to excavate the Malaysian gold deposit. In 1996, Minera Panama S.A. would be given the rights to mine the copper reserves around the Petaquilla. This would become the future site of the Cobre Panama project. According to First Quantum, the area's mineral reserves stood around 3 billion metric tons, or 6.6 trillion pounds. The mine began construction in 2006, with first mining activity beginning in July of 2015. Along with a network of roads around the site, a 25-kilometer access road from Puerto Rican allowed supplies carried by boats to be delivered to the mining site. December 16th, 2012. First Quantum announced in a press release that they wanted to buy all the shares of their rival, Inmet Mining Corporation. Inmet shareholders had the option to be compensated in cash or First Quantum stock. Inmet, on the other hand, wanted nothing to do with this. They told shareholders to reject the offer. But First Quantum said they could start up the Cobre mine cheaper and faster. Inmet had already secured the necessary financing to operate Cobre Panama, and in their eyes, First Quantum was just lowballing their shareholders. First Quantum was making a bold move, especially at a time when copper prices were at an all-time low. It would cost them $5.1 billion to take over Inmet Mining, in addition to the $6.2 billion necessary to finance the mine. The Cobre was also in Panama, a country with a less than ideal political climate. Though the Cobre contained billions of tons of minerals, it was going to be an open pit mine, one of the most destructive forms of mining as it destroys ecosystems around it and contributes to runoff that contaminates rivers. But Pascal was undeterred. He pleaded with Inmet shareholders to accept the deal. If First Quantum could acquire a majority stake of Inmet shares, he knew the Cobre would be his. Investors held their breath as they watched the battle unfold, as it would create perhaps the biggest copper mining conglomerate to date. 1 week later, it was over. First Quantum had taken over Enmit with a majority interest. Over 60 million shares had been bought by First Quantum, and they even bought out Enmit's Korean partner company, LS Nico Copper Co. Enmit's entire board of directors resigned as First Quantum's executives replaced them. The battle for Enmit was finally over. But Pascal didn't actually want Enmit, the company. Sure, he got rid of competition and acquired a few more mines along the way, but Enmit was just in the way of what Pascal really wanted: Minera Panama S.A. More specifically, First Quantum wanted MPSA's contract. In 1996, the country of Panama passed Law 9, giving MPSA exclusive mining rights to the Cobre, and requiring MPSA to only pay a flat annual tax of $375 million and a 2% royalty fee. In the US, the royalty rate for coal mining cannot be less than 12%. Panama has always been very friendly to businesses. It's known for its lenient tax policies, as evidenced by the 2016 discovery of the Panama Papers, which documented many cases of fraud and money laundering committed at the highest level. Panama's confidential banking laws make it a great place to hide immense stores of wealth. This makes Panama a magnet for foreign capital, especially in real estate. Combined with arguably its greatest asset, the Panama Canal, Panama has become essential to international trade. Conveniently for Pascal and First Quantum, Panama did not oppose their acquisition at first. First Quantum had secured a great contract for the Cobre. Even though the royalties on the Cobre were well below what they paid for their other mines, Panama appreciated the jobs that the mine would contribute to the economy. Philip Pascal even became friends with Juan Carlos Varela, the president of Panama. They enjoyed sushi together at a resort the night before the Cobre opened. But Pascal would have known the fate of the Petaquilla gold mine next door. It too was supposed to bring jobs and revitalize nearby communities, but it never fulfilled those promises. Many communities were displaced without proper compensation, and they complained about land and water contamination. During a particularly rough rainy season in 2010, chemicals from the mine's processing tanks may have been washed into nearby rivers. Panama's National Environmental Authority found that the walls containing the tanks were eroding, and the tanks contained excessive amounts of heavy metals like cyanide and mercury. The CEO of Petaquilla Minerals was also arrested in 2016 for fraud. But everything seemed to go smoothly as the Cobre started operation. It seemed like Pascal had struck gold, or copper. Some government officials found the deal to be too favorable towards First Quantum, and the president of Panama himself pushed Pascal to renegotiate a fairer contract. Though Pascal didn't want to talk about it, the government of Panama and First Quantum started discussing a contract that would satisfy both. On July 1st, 2019, Laurentino Cortizo was sworn in as the new president of Panama. He had won the general election against 7 other candidates with 33% of the votes. Varela had served the maximum amount of terms allowed for a Panamanian president, and some suspected him of taking bribes. In January of 2020, the first case of COVID-19 was reported in the US. The virus was found in Europe a month later, and from there it spread across the world. Businesses shuttered their doors, and global trade came to a standstill. COVID was the nudge that toppled the dominoes of trade, and it especially devastated the Panamanian economy. Panamanians, weighed down by inflation and sky-high unemployment, were becoming less and less satisfied with First Quantum and the Cobre. Though the mine was providing jobs for almost 2% of the country's workforce, First Quantum, in their eyes, wasn't doing much else, perhaps being more of a burden than they had realized. Panamanians didn't appreciate a foreign company that was polluting some of their most pristine forests while giving so little back to society. The company soon became a scapegoat for Panama's economic crisis. Fortunately for Pascal, First Quantum reached a deal with the Panamanian government in March of 2023. While it would still need to go through Panama's Congress, it seemed to appease the government for at least a moment, allowing the cobre to resume operation. When First Quantum's new contract was approved in October of 2023, investors were hopeful that the storm would be over for the cobre. But a month later, the country was engulfed in protests.
Battle lines are being drawn in the rainforests of the Americas, and billions of dollars are at stake.
Bringing out tools like the so-called venom.
Schools were shut down, and there were protests in the streets and on college campuses. Social media only fanned the flames. 1 month later, the Supreme Court of Panama finally ruled that First Quantum's mining contract was unconstitutional. Cortizo called a pause on the cobre's contract, hoping to calm the population. First Quantum was apparently left in the dark, scrambling to do damage control. The Supreme Court of Panama had sealed the cobre's fate, at least for the time being. First Quantum had tried to revitalize talks with Panama to reopen the cobre. They cite concerns with storing massive amounts of copper concentrate at the site of the cobre. Several other companies have also tried to buy out First Quantum's stake in the cobre, just like First Quantum did to Emmet. Oh, how the turns have tabled. Investors and companies soon realized how much the world depended on the cobre mine. According to a Bloomberg article, its closing was one of the key catalysts behind a global shortage of copper ore currently gripping the industry, pushing metal prices to the highest point in nearly 2 years. The cobre accounted for roughly 1.5% of the world's supply of copper. First Quantum's other projects in Latin America may have been paused for the time being as well. Perhaps the cobre will reopen in the future, controlled by a different company and in a different political climate. But for now, it sits lonely and abandoned in the middle of the Panamanian jungle.